Hello, my name is Dr. Christoph, and I would like to thank you very much for giving me a chance to show you this video I recorded for a conference about the problem of alienation. I couldn't be with you today, but I spotted the possibility to give you a certain information from my side, and I hope it will be helpful and fruitful for your research. I would like to speak about the path towards equality rights in parental alienation in Poland. How does it look in Poland, especially certain problems regarded who may you be aware of, but you may not know how they work or certain possibilities to solve the problem with them. So the problem in general is an overview on real position of children in Poland in the context of the fundamental rights and personal protection. I will speak about several issues who maybe will, I would say, in general knowledge of yours, which is like legislation, an aspect of psychological evidences and research in the context of alienation, real protection of children, does it exist in Poland? Shall we speak about alienation or shall we speak about triangulation? Political implications in case of one regarding the problem. The question how alimonies and alienation links. Conclusions and certain sources. When you speak about the very first thing, the very first question is, does children have rights in Poland? They have rights. So generally we think like, yes, of course we have human rights charter, we have children's rights charter, we have charter for the rights of citizens in the United Europe. We have of course the Constitution of Republic of Poland, as well a part of the law in Poland is regarded to Parental Codex of Republic of Poland. Now, when you think about it, in a more precise thing. So we have a letter of a law written, signed by the politicians, seems to look perfectly. We have institutions like family courts, we have a police, we have institutions like a Blue Line, OZSS institutions regarding attesting children in the cases where we have family divorce or partners don't live together and they want to decide who takes responsibility for a child. Looks perfect. But it's not. We have 20,000 definition what is children's right in Poland, in the Polish law. 20,000. Which means you can say everything and nothing about it in the court when you're a lawyer. Argument that something is done for a child's will or a child's interest is very common when you hear it in a Polish court. In a practical sense, means nothing. Because if you want a reaction, for example, your child is being alienated, you need a decision of a court or a decision of a prosecutor. The police will come and make the evidence and see if something is going wrong. But this is rare a situation where someone gives such a decision because they don't see evidence. It's a dead circle going. I don't see the evidence something's going wrong, therefore I don't pick up any decision. Of course some parents, mostly fathers, are calling the police and asking, again I couldn't have a contact with my child, again I couldn't have a contact with my daughter, my son, could you come and make just a documentation that I'm standing under the doors and I cannot get in? And very often what happens, police doesn't come. They say, if you want to come, you have so many cases, please, and come to us and to our office and give information. That's the trick. What the police does, they know that if they are not on a site, there is no indirect evidence, and there is no indirect evidence means nothing for a court. Doesn't work. Simple as that. If you have an institution like a Blue Line, yes, it's easier. This institution, I will speak more about it, but still, it's very limited for people who are not living with their children. So generally we have these laws signed, and it's very typical for, I would say, political and social landscape of Poland today, of this, let's say, Habermasian public space, where it seems that everything works perfectly because all papers are signed, but somehow it doesn't work. Because people who work on the institutions, they simply don't take responsibilities. When we speak about responsibilities more in detail, we have the institution, when people get a divorce, this is a common practice that the court in Poland sent them to this institution called currently OZSS. This institution was called before RODK, it's Family Diagnostic and Consulting Center, which exists since 1982. And they were originally designed to study cases of minors breaking the law. That was the original concept. The Polish Codex of Family Law exists since the 60s, and in the 80s, 20 years later, they decided finally to have some institution where psychologists give support in the decisions on the minors when they break the law. Somehow it happened, very quite quickly, already in the 80s, that this institution is being used to give a decision with whom a child should stay. And what is most important to know, the Polish law is based on the positivist basics of the law, the construction. So we don't go back, we just take from a tradition. So if the decisions in the 80s were like, child stays with mother, usually they will keep on that track, and they will not make any decisions. So all decisions done and arguments why these decisions went done are false, in the sense they are not based on a good practice of research. There was a lot of complaints against this institution, therefore, for common reasons. In 2016, RODK was changed to OZSS, which means Consultative Team of Court Specialists, but the same people work there, and the procedure isn't changed. It happened mostly due to the critics by the Stefan Batory Foundation. They made research and published a report about very badly procedures and breaking the common practice of research in these institutions. How does it look usually? There's a family, they do not live together, there's a female with kids. Usually the woman already comes with the children because court gave her a first decision to stay with the children. 99.9% they're gonna look like this. So she comes, she speaks with a psychologist. Then there's a father, there's an interview with the father, they do both the test, and then usually they observe how the father acts with the child for like a half an hour. Now, the process of alienation usually starts already there. The father hasn't seen the child for, let's say, 3 months, 5 months. Cases in Polish court takes years. They take years. So you haven't seen your child already. You've been already with the other parent. You come in, and in a half hour you have a chance to even see your child. What will be your reactions? Who is the victim here? The child is a victim first, the victim is the child, of course, but as well as the second parent is as well the victim. But the psychiatrists working in the OZSS, they don't look at this. They just only want an opinion to confirm a decision of the court already, that the child should stay there. The alienation procedures forward. Nothing changes. The negative observations were done about this institution as well in the international level. There is a website, I will give you the sources, it's www.rodk.pl. It's in Polish, but well, we have a Google translator. There's a lot of cases described there. It's a very good source what actually happens in the OZSS institution. There were as well a series of interpellations made by the Polish deputies to act against unethical deeds and badly done research by RODK. No one cares. No one cares. So we have a next thing, what is actually a family court and what they actually do. The tricky thing is There is no one direct and one global definition of what the family court is in Poland, what kind of a jurisdiction it takes. In paper, again, everything seems to be perfect. But if everything goes to have more complicated cases, one of the parents is mentally ill, may have a behavior like Munchausen by proxy. So it can make a child sick to show it protects the child, whatsoever, psychopathic behavior, whatsoever. These courts are incapable to make any decisions. I say it from my own personal practice as well as observations done by my colleagues. On the contrary, I have to add, I was giving lectures on the family psychology in the Polish universities. I have a close contact with many expert witnesses working in Poland who are trying actually to change the situation for better. As well, I have sometimes a phone calls from the parents, mostly the fathers who are not seeing their child for months or sometimes years. So I'm seeing here, it comes from my personal practice of work. Methods used in the process of judgment are highly comparable with the Andrzej Wyszynski methods. Sounds crazy, but I actually read the book by Wyszynski, The Theory of Foreseeing Evidence in the Soviet Law. And there's a certain hint here, because his method was used in the Stalinist processes, and his method was based like moral go first, and we don't care about direct evidences, and indirect evidences actually can be related to the moral decisions of a political party whatsoever. And if I look on a way how the decisions are made in the family court in Poland, it's really much like this. No one cares about the evidences brought. Decisions are made actually on the concept of moral deeds, which shall not be done in a democratic country, because the role of a court is not to come on to start to fit, to try to pick a moral case. They should make a decision which is the best for a child, right? Not on the personal concept what the moral thing is. Therefore, everything in the family courts goes about the subject of conflict. Who is in the conflict? How does it look in practice? In practice, it looks like this. Usually the man comes to the family court and shows the evidence the woman was doing something wrong to the child or alienating the child, giving a certain problems here. And it's good enough to the other side, to the lawyer stand up and say like, that man is conflicting. He's in a conflict. So he's not willing the best for a child. And he wants to make a decision of a court that the child is already with another partner, which means he is aggressive. And then we have this slides going down to the decision, you shall not have a contact with your child because you are conflicting, without no evidence even. There's no evidence. Because decisions of the OZSS made by expert witness are, as I said, very badly done. There's a whole discussion about it. I will not go into details right now, but there's no evidence there. So it really reminds these kind of methods, which has nothing to do with a normal procedure which will happen in a court. Average case in Poland where father is willing to have a contact with a child or has the will to take responsibility for raising the child takes 3 to 5 years. And mostly the end up this child still stays with the mother. I don't get into there is good or bad. The fact is someone wants to have contact with a child, or seeing something is going wrong with ex-partner affecting the child. He wants to change the situation, usually as a father. These cases take usually 3 to 5 years, and they end up nowhere in between. This child is still being alienated from a father. Classics. Most of judges in family courts in Poland are females. This is also important things in the psychological context. When a man comes into the family court, he will be surrounded mostly by women. If we look into a basic theories of the group dynamics, that means one thing. This is imbalance here. There is a total imbalance, and doesn't matter that someone who is willing to be honest or try to fight for a better position. Group dynamics is very brutal part of, I would call that the psychology, because it shows our animalistic part, how we behave in the group. And when you have 5 females in a room and 1 man, it's not gonna work very well. Work in family court is not considered as very prestigious. For judges themselves, work in a family court is something like, oh, you didn't have the best connection in studies, or you didn't have the best grades, and now you are, in a family court. You don't have serious cases, you have these divorce cases. It's like, they don't treat this work themselves as very prestigious. Some of them, they have a vision to make changes, and I sometimes doubt who is worse in this context. These ones who don't care, or those ones who think they may have mission, regarding what I said already about the Wyszynski's methods. Very often what happens that the protocols are not recorded or are done very badly. It is a very common situation that the usual father, in the situation we have alienation, he has to go back to the court, ask the protocol, ask the recording, compare the recording, audio recording, video recording with the protocol, see what is missing, and write it and bring it back, and because he has such a law. So that means lots of your personal life when you are in a family court is being destroyed by the administration who doesn't do their job in a family court, and you literally as a side do this job for them, for free, in your time when you should look for work or should accompany with your child. Very often. Bribery, plagiarism, and copy fraud are common in law schools. This is observation made by international researchers as well in the context of innovation in science. Not only Poland but generally Central Europe has a huge problems here. So if it's the general question, if you have a judge or a person working in OZDSS or as an expert witness or a lawyer who come to the position through not ethical ways, does such a person work in the interest of a child? I have doubts. When you're speaking especially about what exactly happening in the context of the OZD as an expert witness and as a psychologist, there is another chapter here. Psychologist community generally rejects the law articles regarding work and research on ethical standards in Poland. That sounds crazy, but that's how it looks. There is a law from 2001 who generalized the objectives and aims of the work of the psychologists in Poland. There's a law how the expert witness should work. Since 20 years, the general community rejects this, claiming they cannot have ethical courts because they would have to pay money from their side for the associations. They don't want it. Or there is a difference between the certain definitions between European Europe and the Polish law. Generally, it's like swinging around the problem of taking responsibility for your opinion. No more, no less. An expert witness in Poland is not a trusted person. I've experienced personally a situation where expert witness was taking only 25 euros to make a decision about the child I have never seen in our own life. Classics every day in Poland. There is no jurisdiction or universal methods to act against unethical acts done by expert witness in Poland. I heard recently the court in Katowice finally penalized one expert witness. 2019. First case. There was a concept made by the Ministry of Education called 2.0 law regarding the way how education, the higher education system should work, regarding academic standards of research, and I witnessed it as a person when I was working for a year, exactly that time on the university in Poland, in Krakow. It was totally ignored by the community. They ignore it. They have the same system of points now. They should make documentations, publications, they should do research. Nothing is being done. What is the main factor? Money. They came to work for money and just want money. The same in the case of expert witness. The factor is money. There is a Polish association of psychologists called PTP, who is trying to change that. They're trying to change that. However, they are association. They can only refer to the people who are in that association. Their decisions are not done using the court. So if the expert witness, the mother comes to the expert witness and like, I'm gonna give you 25 euros to write me an opinion that my ex is a bad person and he shall not have a contact with a child. Here's your 25 euros, for 50 euros whatsoever. Even if it will be catched out by by the ex-partner, something's going wrong, he will contact with a Polish Association of Psychology, there will be a case. The court, the public court may take it under consideration or not. Child in this process is completely not protected. There is no protection of child in this process. What is very common for people working in the OZSS, they don't do any supervision. Supervision is the key thing if you work with children, if you work with divorced parents. Supervision is a must. What is a supervision? You are a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you go to another psychiatrist and psychologist and say, I had such a contact with such a people, my reactions were like this, and there's a discussion, and he has to pay for supervision. Most people who work in this institution, they never supervise. They simply claim they better and know better. In this context, I have to say two things from my experience and my wife's experience. My wife is also working as an academic in the field of psychology, and she once was doing a test with a question, what is a parental dyad? A parental dyad is two partners living together and they are parents of a child. End of the story, basics, total basics. However, she put a wrong answer. There was a choice of 4 answers, and one of the wrong answers was it's a close relation between mother and a daughter, or daughter and grandmother. 70% of the female students choose that wrong answer as positive. Now think about it. What happens when you are dealing with alienation? You're looking for the expert witness to show in Poland that something's going wrong. You have no contact with your child. You have problems raising that child. You have a problem, although there is a decision by the court you could have, but you don't have. And you go to this expert witness who thinks the most important relation in life is a relation between daughter and grandmother, somewhere near the head. That's what happens when you don't supervise yourself. From my own experience, I had also another experience. I was showing the students a material from action of the police in the United States, in Colorado, when they visited Chris Wilkins, who was a murderer, psychopath. He killed his wife and 2 daughters, strangulated them. And the situation was there was a record from the chest of a police camera. So there's very good material how the police comes to that house and everything is perfect in that house. There's nothing wrong with that house. There's no blood stains, nothing's broken. And they ask him questions. They ask him questions in English. Where's the wife? Where's the children? And so on. And they decide to take him for interrogation. It was a very important material for me because that shows how to deal with the psychopaths. In most cases, when you have alienation, the partner, ex-partner, who is alienating a parent from another parent, he will have such a behavior. He will show a different face to the court, he will show a different face to the child, he will show different, or she will show a different face to ex-partner. It is a psychopathic behavior, more or less. And it is very important to grab these little differences, which of course the key is system theory in psychology to do that. However, when I ask my students who, most important, some of my students, because I was giving these lectures in English, and I had students who were already working for OZSS. They were working for a couple of years in OZSS already. They were expert witnesses for the courts. I asked him, what kind of question the police asked? You see the video material, you don't hear the audio, not the audio. What do you think? What could be a questions? They make them suspicious that something is wrong with this guy? The positive answers or general answers, what that could be, were zero. No one answered. We are speaking about expert witnesses. So what we have there, we have a common Pygmalion effect described by Rosenthal and Jacobson. Literally, in most of these cases, it doesn't matter how many tests you do, doesn't matter how many observations you do. These people are simply not prepared to the work of expert witness at all. So we have direct protection procedures in Poland for children who are being alienated or being a threat. Let's look on the system theory now. Family, well, there will be a split on the context, right? One family goes that way, one family goes that way. No. School, depends. School usually may notice something is going wrong with a child, but they will not usually interfere. Common situation, I literally yesterday had a phone call from a father who was asking me for help. He has a contact with his own child only in the school, and the child hasn't seen him for a half year, asks, so the father wants to meet the child, but the child is running away, is feeling victimized, and the school doesn't interfere. There's no help to the child from the school. Generally, the school writes the paper to the family court. We don't want them here. We don't want the problem of the child in our school. This is, again, unfortunately, a very primitive group dynamic process. These people simply don't take responsibility for their job. Police, I mentioned already how it looks, as well. Generally, it depends again. It depends. If you were lucky, you may find out a policeman who already went through the divorce. He will understand you. But if you are not meeting a policeman who went through a divorce, it's chaos. There's no standards of behavior here. Blue line. Blue line was a concept already from 90s. Blue line is a telephone line where there's a domestic violence. You call and say there's domestic violence. Please help. But careful. Let's presume there is a domestic violence in a family where there's an alienated child, and the second partner knows that. He wants to call a blue line and says, "Hello, I witnessed domestic violence. There is another family, we are being divorced, we are not living together, the child was with another parent, and I see an act of an abuse, something happens, going wrong. Please react." What you're gonna hear, and what I heard personally, was, if you don't live together, you cannot interfere, because the blue line is only for families who live together. Again, we do not take responsibilities. We take money only for our work. Local communities, that depends again. If we have a chance to live in an area where people are aware of a problem of alienation, they're better educated, they are aware or they know you are a good person, they will at least give you a certain support. But generally, alienated child, which is as well a victim in this process, usually will be rejected. That's the sad truth. People are not gonna get and try to understand why this child is a bit different, why he's acting that way, where's the father or mother of that child. Unfortunately, the ostracism is very high here. And finally, the academics. I mentioned already how it looks. No new publications, very low research on the subject, very low interest in the family cases, ignorance, generally ignorance, not our problem. We don't see a problem here. This is a common situation happening in life here. in Poland. So what happens is a specific situation when we are speaking exactly about United Europe. What when parents have different nationalities, what happens then? So we have a political agenda superior to the rights of a child first. I've contacted with certain lawyers like Peter Buława, who was defending French citizen in the Polish court who had all evidence and the decision of a French court. The child should be with him. The Polish court said the child is Polish, we don't care. Very common. And it happens both ways. And in the context of the fact we live today in United Europe, where parents are travel to other countries, work in different countries, I can observe this decision not only I think in Poland, the most courts will do that. We make a decision which is good for our agenda, not in a context of what was a decision of the court. There are lots of limitation in procedures. It's good enough that parents don't live in the same city anymore. Doesn't have to be even two different nationalities. Then already this process of alienation will go. Different cultures not taken under consideration. We have a strong cultural bias. Of course, if you are a Muslim, you are much higher problems with somebody who is a Catholic in Poland in the context. But not only that. You could be a German, you could be French, English. There's a different style of behavior. There's a different code of acting. The Polish judges will not understand you. They will not gonna get you. For them, there's a very strong, again, this Pygmalion effect about the rich West. So the argument is, he's rich. There's no reason to take care about it. Therefore, that creates a very dangerous procedure, I call save what you can. Usually, when parents have different nationalities, you have this situation very often happens. One of the parents grabs the child and runs to another country. Very often. And this is the most difficult case, what to do with the child, but then one parent is in one country and another parent is in another country. And the Polish courts, of course, they don't know what to do with that at all. Next aspect is specific aspect of alienation or triangulation, where usually, as the name of this conference is alienation. What is the alienation? And this is commonly understood in a sense of cultural definition. Yeah, alienation. Okay, one parent doesn't let the other parent to see the child, and the child suffers. We have a simple facts here, but when it comes to the evidence that we need to evidence that in front of the court, things get tricky. And in my opinion, actually triangulation, as in theories of Newton, are much easier to evidence. As well, they dissolve a problem of conflict. This conflicting in the family, because again, you have an alienated child ready to go to the court, you want to see the child, and the act against such a parent will be he's conflicting, and the court gives this moral decision straight from Wyszynski's method, right? This is the track. This is what happened in Poland. This is a simple track. So when you go triangulation and say like, the problems with alienation started already before. We can evidence that because we can see that through evidences like photographs, emails, recordings, whatsoever, witness experts or witnesses in the court. We are somewhere. We see the problem was before, and therefore we can do something with that. It's much better, and in my opinion, in the context of a work of expert witness, strangulation is much better clue toward the problem of alienation rather trying to evidence and put alienation from the government or in DSM-5, and then in practical sense we would have to educate the whole generation of expert witnesses, wait 10 years, then you're gonna get practice. I mean, children are here and now. We need to have a solution here and now, not wait another 10 years. So I'm strongly for triangulation, as I said. theory to look into to help to resolve the problem. Um, there is a link in between European left and the Polish far right, not a good link. Of course, the concept of alienation is being shown in general in Europe. It's shown by the center and central left mostly, where in Poland that's tricky because the subject of equality in gender and parental is globally misleading in Poland. They completely don't get it. And you may be aware already of the acts of aggression against LGBT plus movement in Poland because they treat the children like an ownership. And when the people in Poland, because we are talking about this dark side of the family courts and speaking about this dark side of the Aussie as expert witness, but there's as well a dark side. I have to be objective here. There's as well a dark side of the families themselves. They see subject of alienation. Lots of people who from far right see the subject of alienation or alternating upbringing only in the context of owning a child as a money box. If I have alternating upbringing in Poland, I don't have to pay the money. I don't have to pay alimony. That's the way. So this is this dark side, and in a positive sense of decisions of a court in Poland, I have to admit the courts deal very often with parents who simply don't want to pay alimonies. However, I would spread it wider. It's actually for both parents. Doesn't matter if female or male. The children are treated as a fetishist commodity. Very much. And giving a child to one parent doesn't solve anything here, because then this one parent will try to get the money from alimony, another one will not try to, but they want to get the child not to pay the alimony. Very oftenly happening. So this is a problem, because I can assure you, if there will be any positive decisions in Brussels after this conference, they will be twisted by the Polish media today, and they will be twisted by the far-right movements today only. This is a very dangerous process, and I'm not having any concept right now what to do with that. There's a political process happening here. We already went through Brexit, and there's a threat of Polexit in a year, which is, in my opinion, straight connected to the problem of the Polish far-right and the way how they see the family and how they see the relationship with a child and ownership of a child. And we will not run away from that problem when we will do something with the context of alienation. We will be exactly there. Therefore, when you look especially about alienation, the point is that most opinions given by family courts are given on the basis of the books, especially Krzemiński, the author here, which is based on the source in the family courts. They don't do indirect evidence or direct evidence. It looks pretty much like Wyszyński's cases from the 50s or 40s in Soviet courts. So alimony turns to be an element of oppression against the parents who does not raise the child, mostly fathers. And I have to say it from my own perspective, I had a suicide in the family. My uncle committed suicide exactly because of that reason. His ex-partner was telling him, you're gonna see the child when you're gonna pay me more. Otherwise you're not gonna see the child. He committed suicide, couldn't stand anymore. Classics. We have that too. Not even mentioning a relation with the children here, which are completely victimized in this process, because they, as I said, treated as a money box. High alimony and often alienation rise the risk of suicide among men, as I said, and there is no control how alimony are spent. There's no method. Again, we have this all charters, human rights charters, everything is beautifully signed by the Polish side. In practical sense, there is no way to check out does the alimony money really goes for the children, and they usually not. Child is a victim in this process in a horrible condition, treated as an object, a fetishist commodity, to raise the money on it, and treated as some sort of a bribe to another parent. So what are the conclusions? In my personal opinion, we should act towards shutting down OZSS and family courts in Poland totally. There is no reason to make any reorganization there. There is no reason. There's too many problems already going there. There's an educational problem, how the people are expertise and courts are being working, how they're being educated, how do they work, no supervision, no observation from the outside. There's no reason they exist. And regarding the problems now, you can hear about, probably hear about the problems around the Polish courts in Poland. How do you think they come from? They come from exactly from the family courts, because most people in Poland experience contact with the court from the family court. So when the politicians in Poland gave them a chance, a hope, whatever we're going to call it in the brackets, that we're going to give them a chance for a change, people voted. And we have this information bubble, because Polish language is not the same like German or French or English, of course. They don't have information what is actually happening in Europe. They don't understand the problems around the LGBT movement. They don't understand the problem of the alienation. So they're hitting their own back strongly, and they still are falling into this process. So any reforms, in my opinion, will not work. We really have to look onto, first of all, a problem of copy fraud and plagiarism of the Polish academics, good research standards in the law schools, make some movement toward a general change in this process. But generally, these institutions shall not exist. There should be similar institution, in my opinion, based on the United Europe standards, based on the charts of common laws of the citizens of the United Europe, a new institution which comes together and change the situation. The most important problem in the alienation is time. I remind again, a case in Poland, 3 to 5 years. It should take eventually 2 weeks, and it takes 3 to 5 years, right? So because it takes so long time, trying to, if you move family courts, then you don't move expert witness. When you move expert witness, you don't move family courts. It has to all go in one. New institution who creates its all the new standards, tests for people working there, with a better position to protect their children. Then we have a track for a better future for children in United Europe. Currently, there is no good or bad choices to reform. This is like a lesser evil. This is a term, of course, from The Witcher by Sapkowski. This is a lesser evil situation. There is no. You cannot say this court works better or that family witness, expert witness is a better person. Yes, I met expert witnesses in my practice who were really devoted to work, and they were really hard-working people, and they were honest, they were supervising themselves and so on. But they are in minority. They are in a strong minority, so we have a lesser evil here. And I think a problem who could be quickly solved and is the easiest to solve is actually working toward universal alimony to limit act of alienation. If you have a universal level of money in Poland or any other country in United Europe, how alimony should stay, what the position, 100 euros, 200 euros, whatsoever, 150 euros, in Poland will be probably in between 100 to 150 euros per month is good enough for a child. Doesn't matter you live together or don't live together, but the child should have that money to live, then you don't have a problem, because the child cannot be used as this fetishist commodity in the alienation processes, like, give me money, I show you a child, you don't give me more money, then alimonies, I'm not going to show you a child. Thank you very much for your patience. I think I was speaking far more than 15 minutes in this video, but maybe thanks to Professor Buchner I will be able to share this information with you. Thank you.